College Board just added a ton of new questions to the bank, so I'm feeling very confident about these predictions. And to be clear, I am predicting there will be at least 2 brand new question types, starting with the one that everyone's freaking out about, unit circle questions. And before you start freaking out, let's take a look at just how easy these questions actually are. On this one, for example, let's just start by treating it like a normal XY plane question. It is saying in the XY plane, so let's plot these points, right? We've got point F, which is supposed to be 1, 0. We've got point G, which is the center of the circle, aka 0, 0. And then we've got point H, which is -1y, which we know is -1, 0. And if you're thinking, what the heck, man? How do we know it's -1, 0? Well, it says both of these points lie on the circle. So if we look at our circle and they both lie on the circle, it's gonna look a little something like that, right? So they have to be on the same plane, basically. They have to have the same y value. Cool. Now it's asking us the measure of angle FGH. Remember, G is in the middle there, so it's asking us the measure of a half circle, aka the measure of a straight line, which is 180 degrees. 180 degrees. Unfortunately, it's asking us in radians. So if you don't know the conversion for radians, all you have to do is click on the references cheat sheet in Blue Book and it's gonna pop right up for you. It is a little bit hidden at the bottom here, but you know, if there's 360 degrees in a circle and that makes 2 pi radians, then obviously 180 degrees, half of 360 would be 1 pi radians. So pi is equal to 180. And now you're probably looking and saying, what the heck, Robert? But there is no pi here. Yeah, there's no pi. So here's the one thing we actually need to know about the unit circle. The unit circle goes around and around and around and around forever and ever. So if we started here at 0 degrees and we went all the way around, boom, to 360 degrees, we would start over again. And we know that we're going 180 degrees, right? But we could also think of this as going all the way around the circle and then going 180 degrees. Boom. Now in degrees, that would be 360 plus 180. What is that, 540? But then in radians, we would have our 2 pi, which is our 360 degrees, plus the additional pi, which is 180 degrees, and that would be 3 pi, right? And if we keep going around and around, we would end up with 5 pi, 7 pi, so on and so forth, where basically every odd number is going to be the same as 180 degrees. It's just scaling up and up and up, going around that circle over and over and over again. So we need an odd number. There's only one odd number here, 25. That is our answer. What about this guy? Well, this is going to be substantially easier. We're just going to pull up Desmos and we're going to type the thing that we see. COS, parentheses, 565 pi, divide by 6, close our parentheses. And we get this number. And then you're thinking, what the heck, man? None of the answers look like that. It's okay, let's just plug them in. And obviously we're gonna skip A and B since those would never end up being such a ridiculous decimal. Let's look at choice C. SQRT for square root, 3 all over 2. And look, it's a match. So our answer is going to be choice C. Importantly, you do wanna make sure that this is in radians mode, right down here. When I pull up the College Board version of Desmos, it is in radians mode, so I think that's the default, but be careful because if we were in degrees, all of a sudden you can see we're running into some trouble, right? Next up, we've got tricky punctuation questions where if you do not read all the way to the period, you're gonna be in trouble. This one, for example, can be very tricky because if we read here, we get the pedagogy of the Suzuki method is rooted in several central tenets developed by Japanese violinist Shinichi Suzuki. That's a full sentence. We would go with choice B. Even if we read to here, we would have the pedagogy of Suzuki method is rooted in several central tenets developed by Japanese violinist Shinichi Suzuki, who sought to parallel the linguistic learning environment. That also is great. That's a full sentence. So choice B seems really strong. But I always tell my private tutoring students, you can be lazy and read only one sentence, but you have to read the whole sentence all the way to the period, because what happens here is the method emphasizes playing instruments from a very young age, We have another full sentence, meaning this is a comma splice if we choose B. B's not gonna work. Instead, it ends up being choice A because if we start with developed, now we have an introductory phrase Starting with developed, we have non-essential information that we can get rid of. And then finally, our independent clause that comes after this comma is allowed to be there because we have that introductory phrase. So our answer is actually going to be choice A. And if that was hard to follow, definitely check out my full English bundle. I'll leave a link in the description for you. Next up, we've got these tricky probability questions where you really need to pay attention to the wording. In particular, we want to be careful of given that. Let's take a look at this question, then we'll talk about what given that does to it. So it says, one of these participants will be selected at random. One of these participants, we can kind of see that participants are basically everyone. So one of these, the entire chart will be selected. So that seems like our population at first. Then it says, what's the probability of selecting a participant from group A? So we're looking at this row. And then it says, given that the participant is at least 10 years of age. So there's a couple of different ways that we might misread this. One of them being, if the participant's at least 10 years of age, then we would forget about these guys and then we would just add these together. So 17 and 8 is going to be 25. And then out of our total, which is 30 here, right? Well, that's not right because remember, our population was all of the participants in the study. So then we would say, oh, it's out of our 90, right? Then of course, if we put that into Desmos, hey, that's choice A. But choice A is wrong.
You're wrong.
No, we made a terrible mistake because when it says given that the participant is at least 10 years of age, it is referring to our total population that we're selecting from, not the target. The target is just a participant from group A. The given that is going to apply to the entire thing. So we have to get rid of all of these guys, which we know totals up to 30. So then rather than 25 out of 90, it's going to be 25 out of 60 after we subtract that 30. And if we plug that into Desmos, we will get 5 out of 12 as our simplified answer, which is choice B, and which is the correct answer. My next prediction is that you're going to encounter joint versus separate possession questions, which is a brand new question type. Although it's something that I do teach in my full English bundle because I anticipated that they might eventually test you on this. So basically, when it comes to possession, let's say Rob and Ada own a cat. We could say Rob and Ada's cat is beautiful. We only need an apostrophe on the last person in our list because they own the cat together. But if Rob and Ada had separate cats, now we need to give an apostrophe to Rob and to Ada to signify that Rob owns a cat and Ada owns a different cat. This is the concept that I'm talking about. So if we apply this to this particular question, we get rocks and wraps ratios, plural, trended similarly. They are different ratios. Each of them has its own ratio, so we need choice B here. Next up, we've got the volume of 3D shapes. And you should definitely have this one memorized, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. Just open up the reference cheat sheet and it's gonna be right here. But basically, we just need to plug stuff in. So it's telling us the circumference of the base is 20 pi meters, and the base is just gonna be the bottom of our soda can, right? We've got this, just pretend it looks like a soda can. This is the circle at the bottom, and it's saying the circumference all around it is going to be 20 pi meters. It's also telling us that it's 6 meters tall. So again, if you need the formula, it's in the cheat sheet, but circumference is 2 pi r, and we know that equals 20 pi. So from this, we can determine the radius, right? We just divide by 2 pi on both sides, and r ends up being 10. Plug that into our equation for volume, and we get pi r squared, or pi 10 squared, times our height 6 is going to be 600 pi. Choice C is our answer. Here's another one, and I certainly don't have a hemisphere memorized. And if we go to the cheat sheet, they don't give us a hemisphere. So what the heck are we supposed to do? Well, they give us a sphere, and it tells us a hemisphere is half a sphere. So let's just take that sphere formula and cut it in half. Instead of 4 over 3 pi r to the third, we'll cut it in half and make it 2 over 3 pi r to the third. And again, we know that our radius is 27, so let's just throw that into Desmos. Boom, 41,000 or so. Our answer is choice D. My next prediction is going to be modifier questions using either that of or those of. And before I show you the harder one, let me just show you how easy these modifier questions are in general. All we have to do is the front flip trick, which is to take our answer choices and stick them at the front of our sentence with the blank space. For example, vegetables and grains were supported by biochemical analyses of skeletons. That doesn't make any sense. Early rulers' diets were supported by biochemical analyses. That doesn't make any sense. Components of diets were supported by biochemical analyses. That also doesn't make sense. Findings from a study were supported by biochemical analyses. Now that makes sense. And that's literally it. Just find the one that logically works, and that is going to be your answer. Now let's look at the trickiest version of these questions, including that of or those of. We're going to do the same thing. You know, a market was compared with that of a highly concentrated market. And reading that first choice, it kind of seems like we're comparing market to market. So that seems like it could work. But the issue is that of. Anytime you see that of, it means we are not talking about the thing, in this case, a market. We're talking about some component of that thing. So because of that, choice A doesn't work because we can't compare a component of a market with a market. Choice B, on the other hand, says the HH score of a market was compared with that of a highly concentrated market. Now we have a component. The HH score of this market is being compared to the HH score of that market. So choice B is our answer. Next up, we've got more scary constants questions. College Board will not stop with the constants questions. And if anything, I think they're just going to ramp them up for this next one. And I know a lot of YouTubers and TikTokers are going to say, just plug it into Desmos, plug everything straight into Desmos. And that's going to work a lot of the time, but just chill for a second. If we plug this into Desmos, we're going to end up having to have this slider, and I'd rather at least see what's going on first. So they give us a point. Before you plug stuff into Desmos, at least plug in your points so you can simplify. Instead of having y, we're going to have 19 because we know this point exists, right? So now let's plug it into Desmos, replacing y with 19. And of course, you can see that Desmos is mad at us because it doesn't like, what? Get out of here. And of course, we can see that Desmos is mad at us because it doesn't like w. So let's actually change w to y, right? Because it likes y and x. And now it's asking us, what is the value of w? Well, remember, we just replaced w with y. So we're really just looking for the value of y. And since we have a system of equations, our solution is what we're looking for here. And if we scroll over, y is going to be 11. So our answer is going to be 11. Finally, one more thing that I've seen people freaking out online about is the rhetorical synthesis questions, because we used to be able to skip the notes and confidently get an answer pretty much every single time when the SAT first went digital. But recently, and this is not completely new with this batch, I would say maybe over the last 6 months, College Board has been incorporating more questions where you do actually need to look at the notes. But the good news is you're still going to start by not looking at the notes. So let's just start how we would normally start, and we're going to ignore these notes and look at the goal, which is to describe how DLS cures 3D objects. Cool. Choice A, DLS, I don't see the word cure at all. A is out. Choice B, DLS cures 3D objects by passing through a dead zone. That works. Choice C, in DLS, light images are projected to cure a 3D object, so that also works. We have an issue. Both B and C work, so we know at some point we're gonna have to look at the notes. Let's look at D real quick. D, all this stuff happens wherein the curing is completed. So that one doesn't really say how DLS cures objects. It just says the curing is completed at the end there. So D is going to be out. Now, between choice B and C, we really just need to figure out which one of them is lying to us. And it's a bit tricky because very, very specific wording is going to make or break this. Basically, if we look at choice B, It says that DLS passes through a dead zone. It cures it by passing through a dead zone. If we look at what DLS is the form of manufacturing itself. What actually passes through the dead zone, if we follow the steps, is UV light. They go through this first step, and then the UV light eventually passes through the dead zone. So that is why choice B does not work, but choice C gives us exactly what we're looking for. Now, if you're serious about getting your highest possible score in the English section, use the link in the description to get a discount on my full English bundle. It includes every hack, trick, and strategy that you're going to need to get a perfect 800, along with over 500 original questions you're not going to find anywhere else. It's already helped hundreds of students increase their scores, and I'm confident it will do the same for you.